Hello and welcome to the podcast version of Convergence 2012, written by Robert R. Ricks and read by the author. The story contains mature content and harsh language. There may be some content which may offend some listeners. If you are easily offended, please stop listening now. Make sure you check out the website at www.convergence2012.com and facebook.com/convergence2012. This episode is brought to you by Zydeco Online, United the Zydeco Nation, www.zydecoonline.com. Thank you for checking us out. I hope you enjoyed the story. Here we go. Chapter 6. First day on the job. December 13th, 2011, San Francisco, 12:15 p.m. Tim and Joy slept long and deeply. Both were plagued with dreams which neither could understand. There was a darkness which invited them like a warm old friend calling them in from the bitter cold. But inside the darkness, they knew there was no salvation, there was no hope. Only pain and sadness. Even though the room was cold, both woke up drenched in sweat. Tim had been lying there for nearly an hour when Joy finally spoke. "It feels so weird." "What's that?" "Being straight. I crave it, but I don't. Know what I mean?" "Wait, no, that's not right. I feel like I should crave it, but I don't. Like a phantom craving, I guess." He nodded. "Yeah, I feel you. What happens now?" Tim had been wondering that since his eyes opened. He was filled with a sense of anticipation and excitement mixed with a lot of fear. Let's get something to eat?" "You have cash?" Tim shook his head. "Not yet, but something tells me I do when I get to an ATM." They got up and dressed. Outside they could hear a huge mob. "Damn, not again." Tim looked outside and nodded. "Yep, another protest, and holy shit, it's huge." Grabbing their bags, they left the apartment and walked in the opposite direction to the mob. Tim had his pistol at his hip tucked in. He was on edge. Walking 7 blocks, they found an ATM and he slid the debit card into the machine and waited. It asked for his PIN and he punched in the code. A menu presented itself and he checked the available balance and there was $2,000. He withdrew $300 and quickly hid the cash away. Joy smiled. "Oh my God, we get to eat something yummy." "What do you want, baby?" "Dim sum." It had been ages since they had dim sum, and Tim had to agree it sounded perfect. He saw a cab and hailed it. He was surprised when it stopped for him, as usually they kept going. He realized he looked a lot better cleaned up. The driver was a wary-looking man whose skin looked as if it had been pulled so tight around his bones. The man spoke with an accent. "Where are you going, man?" "Chinatown." "You got the money?" Tim pulled out 420s. "More than enough, right?" Yeah, hold on." He got them to Chinatown in 15 minutes. Tim and Joy laughed hard as he bobbed in and out of traffic, oftentimes nearly hitting other cars or bikers. He cursed under his breath as he survived each near miss. The fare was $47.50 and Tim gave him $60. Joy jumped out of the cab and spun around and Tim paused. He had forgotten how radiant and full of life she had been all the time before the drugs. He joined her, and they walked hand in hand down the street. The eerie thing was normally Chinatown was full of tourists and many shops. Now there were only a handful of the stores open. Many were boarded up, empty shells. Chinatown was a ghost town. A few gangsters were hanging out front of one of the shops, and they approached Tim. "What you want, fool?" one of the youths, who couldn't be more than 12, said. "Dim sum," Joy said. Something about her smile and bubbly attitude must have been contagious. One of the youths said, "Fine, fuckers, but you gotta eat at my grandma's spot." Tim and Joy shrugged. It really didn't matter where they ate. The youth pushed past some of the other gangsters and pulled Tim and Joy. "This way, come on." Tim was nervous for a moment, and then just relaxed. He followed, and 2 blocks later they entered a small shop. A little bell rang as they entered. The air was full of savory delights, and an old woman came out from behind the counter. She moved slow and motioned for the two to sit. She looked at the young gangster and patted him on his head. "What you want?" she asked plainly as she turned to face Tim and Joy. Joy proceeded to order pretty much everything on the menu, and the old lady simply smiled and said, "And?" after each order. The old woman wrote the order and then disappeared. The young gangster pointed at Tim and said, "You better tip, fucker," and was gone. Tim grinned. A few minutes passed, and then basket after basket of steamed morsels of heaven came out. Joy and Tim ate as if they had never eaten before, and after a little while they leaned back in their chairs and sighed a sigh of complete contentment. The front door opened again, and the bell rang. Tim felt a presence. He leaned back and looked. Standing over him was the man. Tim lost his balance and started to fall back. Kuthanaga snatched a chair and set Tim back in the right way. "Careful now, Tim." Joy's eyes widened as she heard his voice. "You?" Kuthanaga nodded and pulled a chair up to the table and joined them. "How's the food here?" Joy looked at Kuthanaga and then Tim. "Yummy?" Kuthanaga smiled. "Mind if I try some?" There was a lot left on the table and Tim waved at it. "Go for it. You paid for it." Kuthanaga nodded and ate. There was an uncomfortable silence as he did. Joy took Tim's hand and she squeezed hard to the point where his hand ached. Kuthanaga noticed and placed his hand on top and shook his head. "Children, you do not need to fear me. I am here to help. I helped you already, even though Tim here tried to rob and kill me." Joy relaxed her grip slightly and cleared her throat. "Yeah, I know. He feels terrible about that. But we were broke and we were trying to find a way to not end up on the street." Kuthanaga again smiled. "I know all of this. You don't need to explain anything. There are forces at work here which are fueling the pain that everyone is going through right now. Know that this has to happen, though. Also know that everything you think you know is a lie which is going to be exposed very soon." The old woman came out to check on Joy and Tim. When she saw Kuthanaga, she paused. Her eyes grew large. In Cantonese, she asked him, "Are you here to collect me? Is it my time?" Kuthanaga looked at her and was amazed that she saw him for what he truly was. She must have been a half-breed. Only they had the gift of sight. "You see spirits of the fallen?" he replied in Cantonese. "Yes," she simply said. He shook his head. "No, your time is not yet, Grandma. Soon." He examined her and smiled. "I will be back for you, though. I promise." She gave him a small bow and a smile and went back into the kitchen. Joy understood the exchange and asked, "What do you mean you'll be back for her? Why did you ask her about spirits?" Kuthanaga waved her questions away. "Not everything at once, child. There is a time and a place for everything, but now is the time for us to begin working." "Okay, sure. What do you need me to do?" "Simply drive. Joy, you are welcome to come if you wish. Today is a special day." Joy was curious, and she nodded. Tim took the bill to the register, and the old woman came out. "No charge. Meal free," she said. Kuthanaga stepped forward and gently bowed. "I'm afraid we cannot leave without paying for such a glorious meal." "I say no charge." And she turned and walked back into the kitchen. Kuthanaga smiled and turned to Tim and Joy. "Shall we, then?" Tim folded up $60 and put it under the plate and followed Kuthanaga. When they had left, the old woman came out and began cleaning the table. She saw the $60 and smiled. The meal was only $45, and she was taken aback by the fact that the young man would leave money even though she insisted the meal was free. She put the plates in a bin, and she struggled with the weight to get them into the sink. She slid the plates into the water, and as they passed the water, the plates shifted color. Every plate which Kuthanaga had touched turned into solid gold when she washed them. She stumbled slowly back and gently leaned against the wall. Her grandson yelled to her from the front door as she heard it ring. "Grandma, did they tip like I instructed them?" She nodded. "Oh, yes. Yes, they did. You leave them alone." He nodded and watched Kuthanaga and the couple cross the street. Tim looked at Kuthanaga. "Where are we going?" Kuthanaga pointed at the 2010 Santori black supercharged Range Rover and threw Tim the keys. "Santa Cruz." Tim looked at Joy. He mouthed the words, "Santa Cruz," and Joy smiled. Joy got into the back seat and Tim got into the driver's side. He started it up and grinned as he adjusted the black leather seats. After checking the mirrors, they started to drive the Santa Cruz. The drive was relaxing, and no one said a word for the first 20 minutes. "I have a question," Tim suddenly blurted out, shattering the awkward silence. Kuthanaga faced him. "I don't know your name." Kuthanaga grinned. "Would you like to know my real name or my human name?" Tim paused. Human, I guess." "Desmond is my name." "Desmond. Cool. Should I call you boss, Mr. Desmond, sir, or what?" "Desmond is fine." "So, Desmond, what's in Santa Cruz?" "Well, not in Santa Cruz exactly. Near it. There's a tourist attraction called The Spot. Are you familiar with it?" Tim looked in the mirror at Joy. "Familiar with it? Hell yeah. That place is trippy. I took Joy there when we first started dating. I think it was our second date or something like that. Right, babe? I totally know where it is." Joy nodded. "Good. We need to go there. Okay, I can do that. Tim smiled as he had a course and direction. Joy could feel Tim's confidence, and it made her happy to see him smile and relax. It took another 25 minutes to get into Santa Cruz, and as they drove Highway 1, the view was pleasant and nice. Early on, as they had passed through Pacifica, it was mostly gray and foggy, and as they neared Santa Cruz, the sky cleared and the ocean was wonderful to see. Roughly 10 minutes from the beach, the three made it to the outside parking of the mystery spot. There were people walking about, and Kuthanaga smiled. What now? Kuthanaga got out of the car and motioned for them to follow him. Dude, are we going to go through the tour? He shook his head. No. We're going to take a private tour. I don't think they allow that. Kuthanaga flashed Tim a look, and Tim raised his hands. Okay, I'm shutting up. Follow me closely and say nothing. Joy and Tim followed and watched as Kuthanaga just watched in, and no one seemed to notice the three. They weaved past the many visitors until they came to a trail. Kuthanaga paused and closed his eyes. He started walking again, and then stopped at a secluded location. The air was still in this place, and Kuthanaga pulled out what looked like a large metal spike. Tim and Joy both could feel something was odd. It was quiet, and the sound almost seemed muted at the spot where they were standing. Kuthanaga took the spike and slammed it deeply into the ground and pressed. A slight gurgling sound emerged, and he muttered something under his breath. Thank you, Mother Earth. I hope you will understand why I must do this. He pulled the spike from the ground, and it was covered with a milky liquid. Kuthanaga used great care in catching the liquid with a small vial. He instructed Tim to hold the spike. Kuthanaga motioned for Tim to follow him a few steps further, which Tim did. As he neared where Kuthanaga stood, the liquid began running up the spike in the opposite direction towards Tim's hand. Turn the spike towards the sky, please. Tim did as he was told, and Kuthanaga positioned the vial to capture all the liquid. Tim and Joy noticed a very sweet smell that drifted through the air. Wow, that smells nice, Joy said. And tastes just as good, said Kuthanaga. He capped the vial and smiled. Taste? Tim had a few drops on his hand. Kuthanaga pointed to the drops and said, Taste it. Tim paused, and then licked. The taste was a pleasant mixture. It tasted like banana and vanilla, with a slight bubbly sensation that tickled his tongue. Damn, that is good. Tastes like... Say no more. Let's let Joy try some. Kuthanaga took the vial and opened it, and let a single drop fall on Joy's wrist. She tasted it, and it was sour, like a lime, and immediately after, a super-sweet, milky flavor filled her mouth and warmed her. She got goosebumps and giggled. Oh, my God, that was so intense. Kuthanaga recapped it and asked him to describe the taste. Banana vanilla. That was very light tasting, Tim said. Like a super liquid lemon head with warm milk, replied Joy. Kuthanaga laughed long and hard. Tim and Joy looked at each other confused. What the hell? Tim asked. What is that? Asked Joy. The Earth's milk. It's only found in a few locations on the crust. On Earth. It is a very special liquid, as you will see. Both Tim and Joy wanted more of the liquid. They recognized the sensation. Is it addicting? Asked Joy. It is, in a manner of speaking, but with no withdrawal effects. Nothing negative. The flavor, though, will never be forgotten. It is tuned into the taste you desire the most. If you needed to, you could survive on nothing but it. As your cravings shift, the flavor will shift. It adapts to the drinker. He put it away, and Tim took Joy's hand, and they followed the large man. Hey, Desmond. I'm kind of glad we met, and I wanted to apologize for trying to kill you the other night. This is some next-level stuff. Your apology is accepted, and do not thank me. This is the beginning. There is a very high chance that when we are done, you will regret ever laying eyes on me. But enjoy the moment for what it is, because good times cannot always last, but we can cherish their memories. Tim shrugged and followed Kuthanaga's advice. He held Joy, and they walked in silence, content, and for the first time in a long while, they were at peace.